In today's video, I'm going to break down some of the key points that were announced in the UK's budget for 2021 last week on the 3rd of March by Rishi Sunak. And by the end of this video, you'll be able to understand some of the key points that can help you realise how you can benefit from the changes that are coming up. Now, we all know that the COVID pandemic has had a toll on each and every one of us within the community, be it on a financial state, a mental state, or a physical state. However, with the rollout of the vaccines plowing along and Boris outlining the plans on how we can start to get back to normality, the light at the end of the tunnel is starting to become visible. Now, before we jump into the video, it will mean a lot to me if you could subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and smash that like button to help the YouTube algorithm recommend this video to lots more people. We have all adapted our lifestyles to live in this COVID world, and there's no doubt that it has made a huge impact on many people's lives, especially financially. As individuals have had a hard time with jobs being lost, people being put onto furlough, and also some businesses have been put into extremely difficult circumstances where they have not been able to operate, especially sole traders and small businesses. Now, a lot of this comes down to the rules put in place by the government, which, to their understanding, was the best course of action in order to handle the pandemic. Now, I'm not going to spend any time arguing whether it was the best option or not, but at the same time, we need a solution to get back to normality. Now, unfortunately, the government can't miraculously solve everything by printing more money, because not only will that cripple the economy even further by making any money that is currently in existence worth less, but also it will put the country in even more debt that will eventually result in higher taxes in order for the country to crawl out of that debt that has been created. Therefore, these budgets become very important in order to understand what middle ground that the government have decided to land on in order to help the whole economy get back on its feet. Now, the Chancellor of Exchequer announced that the government's total coronavirus spending is now at £407 billion, which means that there are huge challenges ahead to address these record levels of borrowing. So let me break down some of the key points that can help everyone from the budget announcement, and then I'll outline some of the other ones that are going to be useful for the people with businesses. Now, feel free to jump over to the chapter that's more useful for you. Also, in the description, you'll find a link to the government website that outlines all the points mentioned within the budget. So first of all, the furlough scheme, which has been extended to run until the end of September.
First, the furlough scheme will be extended until the end of September. For employees, there will be no change to the terms. They will continue to receive 80% of their salary for hours not worked until the scheme ends.
Now, the younger generation and the lower paid people have been the ones that have been among the most likely to have experienced the furlough system during this pandemic. So therefore, they have seen a fifth less of their salary than they had anticipated for almost 18 months now. But one additional plus side here is that the ones that are on the lowest pay bracket will get a slight bump to their pay, as the national living wage will rise to £8.91 from £8.72 coming this April. And on that note, those that rely on the government's universal credit scheme have also been promised a continual boost of £20 per week for a further 6 months.
We're also extending our support for the lowest paid and most vulnerable. To support low-income households, the universal credit uplift of £20 a week will continue for a further 6 months, well beyond the end of this national lockdown.
Now, for those of you that have managed to save up some money over the years and are looking to buy a property, now this might be a great time to jump onto the property ladder.
The £500,000 nil rate band will not end on the 31st of March, it will end on the 30th of June. Then, to smooth the transition back to normal, the nil rate band will be £250,000, double its standard level, until the end of September, and we will only return to the usual level of £125,000 from October the 1st. Even with the stamp duty cut, there is still a significant barrier to people getting on the housing ladder, the cost of a deposit. So I'm announcing today a new policy to stand behind home buyers, a mortgage guarantee. Lenders who provide mortgages to home buyers who can only afford a 5% deposit will benefit from a government guarantee on those mortgages.
Most of the major mortgage lenders have already signed up to take part in this scheme, like Lloyds, NatWest, Santander, Barclays and HSBC, and will be offering these mortgages from April. But I'll probably do another video to dive into this scheme in a little bit more detail. Now, another thing to note is that the income tax thresholds have been frozen after an initial rise in April, where the lower rate threshold will be increased to £12,570 and the higher rate will be increased to £50,270. But after this raise, it will then be frozen for 5 years up to April 2026. Now in reality, this means that many people will actually end up paying more tax in the long run, because even though there is a freeze on the thresholds, many people within those 5 years will also get a pay rise in their jobs. And even if their pay gets increased in line with inflation, there will be many people who will end up paying more in income tax due to the fact that they've now entered the higher tax bracket. Now we can see here on this graph that the BBC expects that there will be an additional £8 billion raised for the Treasury by 2025 from the new income tax policy. Now the same applies for the pension lifetime allowance and the thresholds for capital gains tax and inheritance tax, which will also be frozen. And similarly to the income tax, some people will end up paying more tax than they would have done before if the thresholds were to rise with inflation. Now the government have also decided to issue its first sovereign green savings bond. Now the interest rate is still unknown, but it will be interesting to see more details around this bond when it's rolled out in the summer. Now one thing that most people will be happy to hear is that the alcohol and fuel duty has been frozen again, which means that this is the second year in a row for alcohol duty, and it also means that it's now been over a decade for fuel. Now on to the business side. As many of you will also have businesses that will have benefits from the budgets too. So first of all, the self-employed income support, which has also been extended to September.
Support for the self-employed will also continue until September, with a fourth grant covering the period February to April and a fifth and final grant from May onwards.
This will now allow for 600,000 more people to become eligible for this support. Now Rishi also mentioned a new restart grant to help businesses get back on their feet.
I can announce today that we will provide a new restart grant in April to help businesses reopen and get going again. Non-essential retail businesses will open first, so they will receive grants of up to £6,000 per premises. Hospitality and leisure businesses, including personal care and gyms, will open later or be more impacted by restrictions when they do, so we'll give them grants of up to £18,000. That's £5 billion of new grants.
He then went on to address the 5% reduced rate of VAT for the tourism and hospitality sector, which will be extended for another 6 months as well.
In 2023, the rate of corporation tax paid on company profits will increase to 25%. Even after this change, the United Kingdom will still have the lowest corporation tax rate in the G7. First, this new higher rate won't take effect until April 2023, well after the point when the OBR expect the economy to have recovered. And even then, because corporation tax is only charged on company profits, any struggling business will, by definition, be unaffected. Second, I'm protecting small businesses with profits of £50,000 or less by creating a small profits rate maintained at the current rate of 19%. This means around 70% of companies, 1.4 million businesses, will be completely unaffected. And third, we will introduce a taper above 50,000 so that only businesses with profits of £250,000 or greater will be taxed at the full 25% rate. That means only 10% of companies will pay the full higher rate.
And finally, a recovery loan scheme, which will help provide lenders with a guarantee of 80% on eligible loans between £25,000 and £10 million, which will be available to all businesses, including those that have already received support under the existing coronavirus guaranteed loan schemes. Now, those are just some of the points that seem to stand out on the various topics that were announced in the budget, but there were multiple additional points that were mentioned, and they can all be found in the link in the description down below on the government website. But I hope this video has given you a high-level understanding of how things look to be changing over the next year and following years as well. Now, I'd love to know from you what you think are the best points, and if there were any points that I didn't cover that you thought were of interest to you. So let me know in the comments down below. But that's all for today's video. So as always, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, make sure you head down to the red button and subscribe right now. And click on the bell as well, so you get notified when my next video comes out. And as always, don't forget to like this video, comment down below, and share with your friends and family. Peace and love to all of you. See you on the next video. Bye.